I apologize about that, ladies and gentlemen. Having some technical difficulties, but it looks like we are live again. I'm just hoping to be able to get Caleb back on the line. Well, I fucked up again, bro. Yeah, I mean, we're back on streaming. I don't know. I don't know what I got to do to fix this, but I apologize. Yeah, we're live. It'll probably just come out as 2 videos. Unfortunately, I had 3 people just now message me and say, "Hey, it just now dropped," and I was like, "We're going back live." Maybe they'll come back in. Worst case scenario, they can just catch us afterwards, you know?
Yeah, we'll just put part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, I'm sorry to you, though, dude. It's frustrating. I don't know if my computer might just not have enough power to deal with it.
Yeah, that happens, dude. I got hot, so sure, I was just like, oh my god, I'm melting.
But yeah, dude, it's if you can't handle the heat. No, seriously, guys, my birthday's coming up September 28th. So if you're looking to buy me something fancy, just get me a new desktop computer. I prefer the expensive ones. Like
a nice gaming PC.
Yes, yes. All right. Well, anyways, I do apologize about that. It looks like he got back a couple of our viewers. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. It looks like the connection health is a little bit better this time. My mental health is a little bit better this time. Caleb's feeling a little bit more comfortable this time.
Looking even more redneck than before.
Yeah, you need to cut the sleeves off that, bitches, and we're good to go.
No, just to pull it up so get the tattoos all the way in.
Yeah. All right, so what were we talking about? We were talking about...
hopefully at least the stream got my awesome segue. That's all I'm hoping.
That is what we did get. Yes, and at that point I pretended... Yes.
Cut it and put it out.
So yeah,
we're talking about John Carpenter saying Halloween is the best Halloween since the original.
Yeah, good. Thank you. And it is, of course, he would say that. As James Cameron said that about you know, the next Terminator movie and all of that. However, you know, Carpenter put his score on the line for this. The dude, he does all right. It's not like he would just have to greenlight this project. At first, I was really on the fence about whether or not it was going to be good, but I really have liked everything that I've seen from it up to this point. So, what are you thinking about the Halloween movie?
It's literally since that you told me it's replacing 2, I thought it was just taking place after 2, so it's rewriting the whole fact that they're not even brother and sisters. I'm so excited about it. I don't necessarily like that because I like 1 and 2 a lot.
Yeah.
And for him, as far as like him saying nice things about it, I mean, that always happens. Anime creators say great things about, like, the creator of Death Note said Death Note movie is phenomenal.
Yeah,
we watched that movie. It was garbage. They have to. You know, so they have to say that. So I don't, to me, that doesn't mean anything. But I'm excited about it. It's definitely a movie that I'm interested in. I'll definitely go see.
Yeah, I'm actually quite looking forward to it. I know you don't always like to pay attention to reviews and all that stuff, and I didn't read any of them specifically because I would like to go into it blind as well, but I've been kind of just getting a read off of people's general thoughts and feelings on it, and it seems to be going over pretty well. It's not like a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes or some shit, but it shouldn't be. This isn't a movie that should be for everyone. So last I saw, it was sitting at about a 75. And I just think that's pretty exciting. Yeah, that's something I would like to see.
Yeah, I think I agree. This is not a movie for everyone. I wouldn't expect it to be. You know, it's a sequel reboot to a, well, now pretty mainstream franchise, but because horror seem to gotten very mainstream as nerd culture gets bigger. But there is a very specific people they're going for, and I'm a firm believer if you can make that crowd happy, the rest, the mainstream audiences will come around to it.
Well, and that's a kind of interesting topic, and kind of going back to the Nun and its box office and things like that, I think you're tapping into something about a certain subsect of people, a certain fan community that really may not give much of a fuck what critics say. And I respect that, because I am somebody that maybe puts a little too much stock into it. That said, I decided to go see The Nun despite the fact that a bunch of uptight critics didn't like it. And, when it was all said and done, I got to say I understand why. I understand why they didn't like it. But, yeah, I don't know. There's not too much to report on this other than it came out at Toronto International Film Festival, and a couple of the people who I was curious what their thoughts would be, including Jeff Snyder and Perry Nemiroff from Collider Video. Both, they were, big horror fans, and both really liked it. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Do you think it has a chance of doing anything near the business that either it or more recently The Nun did?
I think absolutely it does. I don't know if it will, but there's definitely the possibility of it. If there's enough hype around it and they get enough of a push, if they can do a real controversial YouTube ad, there's things that they can still do before it comes out to really push it in there. It seems like the early buzz around it is pretty high. There's still time. When does it come out? The official release date, do you know?
I can real quick. I know it's definitely October, like the weekend before Halloween.
Because they still have time to go ahead and get this, get this tied in, like get a little more hype around it and getting some more positive buzz. I think it absolutely could, and it comes out at the right season, come close to Halloween. A movie that called Halloween on Halloween is a big sell.
Yeah.
People will go to see it just for that. So I think absolutely.
So October 19th is the release date. What I think is fascinating about this, man, is it just seems like sometimes you don't know. Who would have ever thought, well, of our generation you would, but Halloween is multi-generational. To think that Pennywise is near the icon that Michael Myers is fascinating. I know Stephen King himself is a huge brand, so I'm not saying, oh my God, Michael Myers is so much bigger. But then you look at the Rob Zombie remakes and the kind of numbers that they did, and it wasn't impressive on a level of something like A Quiet Place, which was completely based on its own intellectual property. Or, we've gotten Nightmare on Elm Street reboots that or even Friday the 13th, the big 2009 Jason re-release. They didn't do gangbusters at the box office, yet we get these movies like The Nun, which maybe they're generationally, maybe it's what's hip with the kids is ultimately what's going to be the thing that drives the box office more than nostalgia. And maybe that's a good thing.
I think that's if you can get teenagers on board with anything, you'll see success because of the influence of social media. And right now, currently, 20s and teens are very active in it. Look at anything Marvel, all of that. If you can get that group on board with you, they're going to talk about it on social media, and that's going to help. So I don't know how that'll pan out for Halloween, but I think there's potential there. Also, too, the last Halloween remake came out at a totally different time. Horror was not what it's doing right now. That was in that weird time where no one was really rocking with horror that much.
Yeah, it's a great point as well. And bringing back the returning cast seems to be something that's pretty popular right now, and it does seem like it rekindles a lot of people's interests with it. But even looking forward into next year with with Bill Hader and Jessica Chastain and all of these other very talented actors lending their voices to it, kind of shows that the future of horror is headed into some really interesting directions. And that kind of brings us to this week's topic, where we're going to discuss what is America's fascination with horror? Why has it seemed to kind of resurface now? Is it a reflection of the times, or is it just that we're ready to see something different? What are your initial thoughts on that?
I think everything goes in cycles. I think personally that everything goes in cycles. People get tired of something, and there's going to be generations that grew up with something that was popular. And I don't know if that's true, but when filmmakers are coming up, if they're at that age where, like you and me are both in a prime age where horror was a big deal, so it makes sense for big horror fans.
Yes.
And I feel like, and we're about the age of a lot of directors now. And so it makes sense that we're getting a revival of horror, and that the artists are dictating that, and now there's going to be a whole new generation that 20 years from now is going to be making really good horror because they grew up on that cycle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's a great point. You know, it's really the Gen Xers more so than myself that grew up in those 1980s slashers era. But that means a lot of people like our age grew up with that almost being like a part of our lives. You know, like it was always went through all of these different phases of horror films. And I mean, if the fact that they're bringing back all of these very iconic franchises, like I didn't even bring it up in the news section, but it looks like Jordan Peele may be executive producing Candyman, which is one of my all-time favorite horror movies, and one that definitely I think can deal with a lot of political ideas that are going on right now. Caleb, did you ever see Candyman?
Years ago, I mean, when I was a kid, but I'm not enough to remember. I just remember it's the guy who was in the remake of Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, good call.
That's
good call.
about it.
His name's Tony Todd. I actually, he's hidden behind the light over there, but huge role model of mine because I saw Candyman when I was about 12 years old. It's one of the few movies that scared me, but Candyman, kind of like Doug Bradley or Brad Dourif as Chucky, he's synonymous with the character because he is visible. He's not wearing a mask. You can't just replace him every time, and he's getting up there a little bit in age, but dude, I would just love to see him come back as Candyman so much. And I think if anybody could imbue it with that social commentary, it would be Jordan Peele, because what it is, there's a white grad student writing a thesis on urban legends and graffiti, and ends up going into the housing projects. I think it was in Detroit, maybe Chicago housing projects, Cabrini Green, and gets introduced to this myth of a black man who is haunting the projects. If you say his name in the mirror X amount of times, he's going to pop out and kill you. Turns out he was like a wealthy socialite who had worked his way up through, very segregated times because his parents were well educated. So he was able to thrive as an artist. But once his white lover's father found out she was dating a black man, they murdered him. And so now he's come back to get revenge against really just anybody who says his name in the mirror 5 times. But there's a lot of subtext that you could play with there.
Yeah, actually, I didn't even know what those films were about. It's been so long that I've seen them, and honestly, it sounds way cooler than I really thought it would be from that. And I would love to see. I wish Jordan Peele were directing it because, man, I did not like Get Out, but he is a phenomenal director. Someone who didn't like the movie, it was directed amazing.
Yeah, production is just, producing a movie isn't the most hands-on part of the movie process. So I'm with you, man. I would definitely. What did you say? You wanted to see him directed or no?
I did.
Yeah,
I would love to.
I would too, as opposed to, because you never know the quality of a movie just because of who produces it. But yeah, I think it's a cool project for him to jump into, and it does. It just reinforces this idea that horror movies are coming back. Did you ever see Fangoria magazine growing up?
Oh, all the time as a kid. Loved it as a kid.
So,
but I haven't read it in God knows how long.
They went dark in 2015. And for horror fans, that was like kind of the end of an era, you know what I mean? Because it was one of these things that growing up, before the internet, this is the way that you got the casting news. This is the way that you got the behind the scenes and, how to show special effects and movie reviews and all of these awesome things. So anytime I saw a Fangoria on the magazine rack, I would grab one, really macabre shit. Always loved them. And turns out they're actually relaunching Fangoria. It's going to return and actually hit publication. They're printing magazines again after an unofficial hiatus. And they're actually going to start reprinting a bunch of their famous covers, and they're producing their own movies. And something kind of cool is that the first 3 independently produced films that they're coming out with are going to have female directors, one of them being a remake of David Cronenberg's Rabid. So what do you think when you hear all of this, man?
The big takeaway that I took away from this is that they are printing copies of this.
Yeah, right?
I'm like, why? why that is, to me, I mean, I think is a dumb move, but maybe they'll get that collector base is the only people who are going to pick up these. And where are they going to even sell these at? Who sells magazines? Like, is it, I haven't bought a magazine in a store in 20 years.
So what if they just print 1,000 of them and they sell them at horror cons? That's the only way I think they could turn a profit off of it. Because yes, I thought the exact same thing that you did.
Yeah, that's the only way. Because I'm like, this has to be a collector thing. That's the only way this makes sense. Is if it's something that is for collectors? Because I can't picture. I mean, to me, like everyone's rushing to get out of print, not rushing to get into it. I mean, people are even mainstream media websites are not doing well because of people like us having talking in front of a camera in their bedrooms. So that's even hurting. So why the hell? Who would think it was a good idea to go into print? I don't know, unless they have some killer plan that I just don't know about.
Sell those bitches for $20 a piece, and the horror fans, the diehards will line up to buy them, and I can't fault them for it. Like I love this shit as a kid. This is what I lived for. So I'm real excited to see it coming back. I've actually pulled up a Pinterest page that we're looking at right now, kind of going over some of the iconic posters from then. And I don't know how much experience you had with these, but there are some really great covers and issues. One is all the way back to, it's got Vincent Price on the cover of it from Roger Corman's The Post Cycle. Got a Freddy versus Jason one in here. Let's see, what are some of the other good ones? Little Shop of Horror. Go ahead.
Yeah, Fangoria is one of those things that like I would pick up, back when you could buy magazines at like a grocery store.
Yes.
I remember like asking my parents for them, like it's one of those things that I definitely remember of it. I believe I had one that had I want to say Jason. No, I had one that had Puppet Master on it, I believe.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I remember I probably read that thing so many damn times just because it was creepy and weird, and I don't know. But I do think you're right. I think collectors will buy them, and I mean, I look at myself. I spent $500 on Hulk issue 2, so I can't knock anybody for spending money on something that's printed when I've done that.
Right, and so I can I can just see that there's something in the zeitgeist right now that like maybe it's a market that's not being catered to as much with all of the conversation about superheroes and these big budget tentpole movies. It does seem like an underserved market. It's one that's always allowed independent filmmakers and really low budget filmmakers to get out there and tell interesting stories. So I think it's a great thing. I think it could only really spell good things for the future of cinema when people are going in and making $50 million or $100 million movies like It, and then just making fucking gangbusters at the box office,
That's a great point that I never even thought of. How many directors who don't even do horror anymore got their start? I mean, the first Spider-Man film was the first trilogy that made a ton of money was directed by a horror director,
yes.
Sam Raimi,
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many people get their start in that genre because you can make a great horror film for a low budget? In fact, some of my favorites, I think almost less budget makes them scarier. And that's something I never thought of, but how many phenomenal directors would we not have had we not had low budget horror films? And so that's something that, I think you're spot on for that never occurred to me.
I wish I had a list in front of me, but obviously you've got your John Carpenters, you've got your Steven Spielberg. I think, Duel he did before, and then Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, now I'm gonna fucking completely brain fart. Point is, a lot of them.
A lot of them. A lot of people, I think, now who are not even known for horror films got their start in horror. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, you're 100% right.
So yeah, as I'm scrolling through these, it just reminds me of how much of a how devout the horror fan base is, and horror does seem to be one of these genres that's kind of critic proof, because horror fans are going for a very specific thing. It's different from what critics are going for. And I remember being one of those horror fans that just almost indiscriminately loved it because it was almost taboo or subversive and kind of edgy as a kid. So, I'm really eager to see what the future of this holds. I don't know if Fangoria is actually going to be something that has any sort of substantial revival, but I'm curious to see what the next movies that they put out are, because yeah, it's just always cool.
I just pulled up while you were talking a list of some people who got their start in horror.
Oh, good. What you got?
So first of all, Sam Raimi, which we said, Oliver Stone, Peter Jackson, James Cameron,
of course,
Catherine Bigelow.
Fantastic movie. Near Dark is so good. Catherine Bigelow.
Oh, it's such a good movie.
Yes.
Steven Spielberg, Zack Snyder, James Gunn, another one. Yeah, perfect
Holy
one.
Shit.
J.J. Abrams, Bob Clark, Curtis Hanson. I mean, the list just goes on and on forever.
Most of the most revered directors that are working today cut their teeth in horror films.
Yeah, so that was something that, as soon as you said it, I was like, you're 100% right, that I never ever thought of. But there's so many. Yeah, James Gunn. I can't believe James Gunn. My mind now goes to Marvel before it goes to horror, which James Gunn, that's how he got his entire start.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And it's, amazing to me that how many of these people, and Peter Jackson's another one now known for Lord of the Rings, but I remember watching what was a Bad Taste.
Oh, yeah. And Dead Alive was another good one.
Dead Alive, yep. And then, God, I mean, how many others did he do? Didn't he do Frighteners, or am I mistaken?
Frightener. Yeah, you absolutely did. That's a good one.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's done so many that I think that is probably the big takeaway from this episode is you're right. We need horror to replenish talented directors.
Do you know Caleb Richardson?
Do I know him?
Uh-huh.
Like, is he a director?
No, I'm sorry. In the chat just now, he said, so Henry Cavill just posted a cryptic video on Instagram. He's slowly lifting a Superman action figure with a 2 written on a sticky note while Superman theme plays. Guys, I think he just announced Man of Steel 2. You want to fact check that real quick while we keep going?
I'm totally looking into that.
And then Venice Beach says, yeah, dude, that Insta video was cryptic. We got an article about our movies on Fangoria website and nobody read them. Oh, I also wanted to say Venice Beach actually used to work on a bunch of horror films, so maybe we can have him on sometime to talk shit about that. Yeah, that'd be awesome to hear his experience.
I would love to hear that.
I also noticed that you had a friend, and this isn't related so much to this show, but had reached out to us via Instagram talking about potentially joining us on the other show. I've had people mention that to me lately, and I do want to say for any of you guys that may happen to be listening right now or listening to this after the fact, we would love to open it up and have guests and have conversations. We're trying to get in the swing of things, at least for the time being, and, feeling each other out, feeling the schedule out, and all of those kind of things before we start to consider bringing on mini guests. But there are a lot of you guys who we would obviously love to collaborate with. We just got to get our schedule worked out, kind of start to refine the edges, and then we will stay in touch with you guys.
Here's Henry Cavill with this video.
Hold up, let me bring you up real quick. Let's see. Oh, wow.
Yeah, play this.
Can you play it?
So here's him. Yeah, there it goes. So he's just like slowly raising a toy.
He hadn't even got to it yet because there's a buffer screen on. We'll link it.
Ah, damn it. See.
That is cryptic. He's like, oh, psych, suckers.
Okay, so I'm hoping that this was all just fake news, because, which honestly wouldn't shock me either. As much as the rumor mill goes around the DCEU is just ridiculous. I mean, how many times have we heard Batman's exiting the DCEU, like it's unreal. So who knows?
Yeah, so he said, we got articles written about our movies on Fango website and nobody read them. It just doesn't get good traffic anymore. We would shoot 100 pages in 6 days on a $25,000 budget, and it was overall very miserable. Okay, so first he's talking about the movies that they had featured in Fango that nobody would watch them, and then the movies that they would shoot were miserable. So all in all, sounds like a pretty good time. Well, either way, we'll get the extended version of how shitty it was, because I'd love to hear about that.
Especially that is a very fitting subject for a show called Movies Are Terrible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know. I just think that maybe because Fangoria hasn't done much yet, maybe it's just now starting to gain momentum. But then again, you're talking about years ago, I think. We'll have to carry on this conversation another time, guys. It has been a lot of fun, as always, talking with you. Caleb, is there anything else before we go? I mean, we talked a little bit about the People Are Terrible podcast, but might as well plug it again. We've got a lot of good stuff showing up. As of right now,
Absolutely.
The tentative schedule is Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Coming to you at, we'll say, 5 p.m. because we don't want it to overlap with what he and I are doing Wednesdays at 7 CST, PM CST. Anyways, yeah, guys, let's have some conversations down in the comment section. We would love to hear about your thoughts on any of these array of topics. And me and Caleb are always looking for just random, weird, hilarious, dark, true crime, stupid crime, whatever you guys want to talk about on our People Are Terrible podcast. Leave them shits down in the comment section or contact either me or Caleb. Caleb says stuff on Twitter and Instagram. Jeremy B. Terrible on Twitter and Instagram. People, PPL, are terrible on either Twitter or Instagram. And we've got a lot of stuff in the works, guys. We are going to sit down and have a powwow here in the next couple days, come up with some cool content for you guys in the future. And all you got to do is subscribe and then click that little bell for notifications so that when we do go live, you know you can come by and contribute to this conversation, because without it, you guys, we are just talking to ourselves, which is fun, but I think both of us would rather be talking to you. Before we go, do I know who Michael Biehn is? Fuck yeah, dude. That's John Reese. And what else who else was he? Johnny Ringo from Tombstone. And what else was he, Caleb?
That was the only one I knew was Tombstone. I'm the worst with actors.
Oh, yeah.
I never knew who the hell he was.
Oh, he was Hicks.
Yeah, you showed me a picture.
No, he was not Hicks.
Oh, okay, I know. Oh,
Hicks
okay,
was Bill Paxton. He was, fuck, whatever. Leave it in the comment section.
No,
yes.
Hicks wasn't Bill Paxton.
Hicks was, okay, then it was Hicks.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about then. That's Hicks, yeah. No, Bill Paxton was the Game Over Man. I cannot remember his name, but that's who he was.
He just now said Michael Bihn's his dad. We're going to have to talk. Venice Beach Sports Network.
This is so exciting to me. I have no idea what's happening right now.
I know, that's crazy, right? I work for him making those movies. Dude, that is so cool. Yeah, all right, well, we will be in touch with you after the show is over, my man. That's really, really cool. Yeah, Aliens. Absolutely, Lars.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, shout out to everybody watching. If you enjoyed this video, of course, smash that little thumbs up button down there. It really helps us out. Tell your friends. Tell your friends to drop by and say, what up? We'd love to hear from them as well. And, yeah, if nothing else, on behalf of me and Caleb, be terrible.